My name's Rob, and this is a place for you to share and gain insight on how to succeed and better serve more families in this rapidly changing marketplace. This is FDTV. Hello everybody and welcome again. This is our third episode of FDTV. I'd like to express my appreciation for how much feedback we've gotten from the first two episodes already. We've got several emails. We've had people respond very positively, and I just want to again thank you and encourage this participation moving forward. We do want this to be an interactive experience. In the studio with us today is Paul Lovelace. He's our Executive Vice President of Corporate Development here at FDLIC. And Paul, I know you've done a lot of, you've been working hard lately, doing a lot of writing and a lot of research and stuff like that, but you've recently had a bit of a health scare. You want to talk about that?
A little bit, yeah. Thank you, first of all, for having me. I appreciate it, Rob. So yeah, I say recently, it's been about 10 years ago, though. Just a routine visit to the dental office, and a friend of mine happened to be my dentist, and he comes back and he says, yeah, your teeth are fine, but I tell you what, we have a bigger concern here. He said, your blood pressure, it's really high, 225 over 110 or something like that, which scared me to death. But he said, we really need to get this taken care of. And so I think it made me think about the funeral profession today, and from the standpoint that there's a lot of concerns and challenges that we have, but I feel like oftentimes we're not talking about the bigger concern. Like, for example, there could be an elephant in the room right now, and we acknowledge the elephant, but no one's doing anything about it, right?
So when you talk about that, I mean, there's a lot of things, and I've talked with Chris about this several times. I think we all have, when it talks about, we deal with symptoms all the time. We talk about some of the things like rising cremation rates, and we talk about families that are on the move and dispersed. When we talk about all those things and how they contribute to the current state of affairs with our business, but those really, your article seemed to indicate that those really aren't the threat that we need to be really concerned with.
I don't want to minimize their importance, because they're obviously very important and we can't ignore them, and that's not the point necessarily at all. I think the bigger concern for me and for our profession is, are we staying relevant with the funeral consumer? I mean, that's what it boils down to. And I always think about Blockbuster Video, because everyone wants to blame Netflix for the demise of Blockbuster. But I remember Blockbuster. We used to go down to the video store. My kids were younger, and I loved it at first because they always had your favorite movies. You can get a variety, and I liked that. But it got to a point where what I didn't like were late fees, because I was one of those people that never got things turned in right on time. I know it's hard to believe. But sometimes I had to drive across town, right? And then you get there and they may not have the movie you want. And so when you think about it, Blockbuster was as much to blame for their demise as Netflix was. So I think, what does that have to do with the funeral profession? Well, we've got to serve the next generation of funeral planners. We have to serve them well. Things that were valuable in the past are not necessarily valuable anymore. In the old days, you had a 10 o'clock funeral or a 2 o'clock funeral. It was at the church. There was always a funeral coach and a family car, and everyone knew how the funeral was going to go. Today, that's the exception.
Yeah.
And so we have to be able to help families who want to go to the conservative way, traditional way, and to the new way where they want to do things differently. I mean, they want to challenge the status quo.
One of the things that I enjoy about what we're trying to do, like with things like this program and even just in our communications in general in the funeral industry, is that we really have a vested interest in the success of this entire profession.
We do. I mean, if our funeral homes aren't successful, then our company's not successful. So it's one of those things where we have to be sharp with our value proposition for funeral homes, but by the same token, we got to make sure that funeral homes can have their value proposition clear with their families. But I do think we've learned a thing or two over the years about what works and what doesn't work for any business, not just the funeral business. I mean, the object of a business is to create customers and retain customers. That's the purpose of a business, even the funeral business. And so we have to be intentional about that. And so we ask funeral homes all the time, what's your client acquisition strategy? Do you have one? And a lot of times they look at us funny and say, I haven't really thought about that. And so we go into a discussion about what that means. The best way to acquire new customers is to create value for them. You can also choose to carve all that out and just be a transactional business where it's all about the price. Certainly a space for that. But the problem with that is no one makes any money there. Because when you're the cheapest, you can't be the best, right? So business owners try to escape that commodity level by providing greater value. And so it's not always clear cut. I mean, this is a high trust, high relationship business that we're in, and it's hard to scale it up. And so it really is incumbent upon the business owner to be creative, to be someone who is very high caring and intentional about that with their customers, and make it, I guess, convenient for families to communicate with them and interact with them in a positive way.
Well, I spend a lot of time in funeral homes, and I see the ones who are getting it, the funeral directors and the funeral home owners who are getting it, they're coming up with things that they just never dreamt of before, and stuff that, maybe their competition is just going, I don't know why they do that. It just seems like a waste of time. But families are recognizing that stuff.
They really are, and it's I just talked to a funeral home owner this morning, and we had a seminar this week, and he was amazed. We had 35 people show up. Half of those people registered to attend via Facebook. And I think he was as surprised as I was, but he was excited because now he wants to do more, and his family's really appreciated the convenience of it.
I think those are all good points. Any parting words for us to understand? I mean, that value creation is such an important part, and I think that extends beyond just what it is that we do, but I mean creating value in relationships, your personal relationships, creating value in everything. What are some good tips for that?
Well, I think value creation it's a word that almost gets overused to some degree because we all want value. I mean, when you buy a car, you want value. When you go on vacation, you want value. But when we're trying to create value, I think we have to be super intentional about that. And that means that for our customers, we've got to connect with them, and we have to solve their problems at the end of the day, right? And sometimes they don't even know what their problems are. So they need someone that can give them that insight, which the insight is essentially the information that's beyond the obvious, right? And so they may be able to read the information and say, oh, I understand that. But they don't have the real insight that someone like a true sales professional or business professional might be able to bring. So I would just simply say, focus on your customer, solving their problems, helping them to have the solutions. For example, in the funeral world, the real problem is grief. Families don't want to be in the funeral home. And on the at-need basis, they want to have a quality experience, and they want to minimize their grief, and they want to know what's needed. That's where we are in the funeral profession today. So I think those funeral home owners that get it, yes, there's challenges with cremation. Yes, there's challenges with competition and discounting and the internet and all those things. But I think it comes down to how are we serving our families? What kind of value are we creating for them, and how are we helping them at the end of the day?
Paul, thank you for your time. Yeah. It's good having you in the studio. And I just want to say, wrapping up, encourage you guys, if you have some feedback or maybe have some ideas to things that we can talk about on this program, I'd like to encourage you to email us. We're at FDTV@funeraldirectorslife.com. And we'll see you next time.